Hello and welcome to our final Tech Talk of 2020. Wow, what a year 2020 has been. I don't know about you, but I think we all deserve t-shirts saying I survived 2020 because it has been mind-blowing. I hope wherever you are, you're good and safe and well. Welcome to my home in London, and thank you so much for having me in your houses today. I appreciate it so much. Some basic housekeeping for our talk today. This is live. Lucky for you, that's very little pressure on you, a little bit of pressure on me. But what that does mean is that you can get to ask your questions to the minister, and I really encourage you to do that and take advantage of this moment. And how you do that is by pressing the question button up there or down there and sending that through to us. And I've got my mobile phone here. I'll be getting those questions and I will be sending them, asking them to the minister and trying to get through as many of your questions as possible. Also, just some housekeeping is about the fact that this is being recorded. We don't normally make our tech talks available publicly, but in the spirit of radical transparency, which is a big element is what we like about the minister, we will be making this publicly available. It is being recorded. The opinions expressed here don't represent Warner Media as a whole, just so we're all clear about that, but we would love to hear from you. And hearing from you is something that is a big part of our innovation spirit. I love hearing from you. So please, if you enjoy our tech talks and you enjoy what we do send me your feedback. My email address is available. You can email me directly. We're always willing to learn and to grow and to improve our services to you. So if you've got any feedback, even if you don't like what we're doing, please let me know so we can make sure that we're always bringing you the best of innovation in our company. Now, the minister has kindly stayed up to its 9 p.m. in Taipei. And I know we have a whole new community of people who've joined us today from APAC, and it's so great to have you here. And for those who are regulars, you'll be very familiar with this. We always start off our tech talks with a moment of interaction, and we're going to be doing that today together. So how it works is get out your mobile phone. Don't worry, we're not going to be taking any selfies. And if you do that, we're going to answer something through a program called Menti. And so it will appear up on your screen now. And all you do is I want you to put your camera to the QR code. You'll see a little web address will appear up. Press the button, and you're going to be asked a question, which is, when you think about 2021, how do you feel? So when you think about 2021, how do you feel? If you're struggling, if the camera isn't working, you'll see you can just go to menti.com and put in the code 6941947. So thinking about next year and everything we've been through this year, how does it make you feel? And I really encourage you to use emojis. Now, the reason why we do this is you can't see me. I mean, you can see me, but I can't see you. And it's very difficult to kind of get that sense of community. So this Menti program allows us to kind of get a little bit of a feel about how people are feeling. Our last Tech Talk had 1,000 people tune in, and this is just a great way to see how people are reacting to the year ahead. So it's nice to see the word hopeful there, optimistic. I'm seeing a few heart emojis. That's really nice. I'm seeing curious, excited, global. Oh, I like that word. I know we've all definitely not had the opportunity to travel this year. Hopeful, excited, tired. I'm seeing a couple of little Christmas hats in there. So this program is just, lots and lots and lots of smiling emojis in there, a couple of eyes. So I'll let this run on screen for a moment so you can see how your colleagues are feeling about next year. And I find this is a really great interaction for everyone to get a sentimental feeling about. Hopeful is the overriding feeling for next year. And man, we all need a little bit of hope and a little bit of light at the end of 2020. Thank you so much for participating in that. I will definitely be asking Minister Tang what she feels about 2021, considering the year that we've just had. Now, when I think of government, I don't know about you, but I tend to think of old institutions, stuffy, very slow to move, which is why when I discovered Minister Tang, I just found Minister Tang so refreshing, because the minister's been able to bring a 21st century mindset to an older Taiwanese executive cabinet. And the reason why I brought Minister Tang in today is because I believe if you can take a system like government and make it agile and future focused and connected to the people, then perhaps we at Warner Media can take some of the same thinking and philosophies and bring them into our business to make us competitive, to help, service our customers and make this a great place for our employees. Now, Minister Tang is not your usual government minister. The minister has a background in hacking and being an activist, which again are not the things that you think about when you think about someone in government. For my fellow nerds, you'll be happy to know that Minister Tang has a background in software programming and has played a prominent role in the Haskell and Perl programming language community and has worked in the private sector as a consultant for Apple on computational linguistics and Oxford University Press on crowd lexicography. Today, the minister has introduced a number of amazing programs into the Taiwanese cabinet, and I look forward to talking to the minister about that, as well as learning how they've been able to get ahead of the coronavirus. So on that note, I'd like to introduce the incredible Minister Audrey Tang. Welcome, Minister.
Encouraged, hopeful, optimistic to be here.
Excellent. Well, we're so glad that all those warm, fuzzy feelings are with you too. I mean, Taiwan has had a very
with a warm, fuzzy mask.
I love the colors. You actually before we came live, you shared with me you've got quite a collection of masks just sitting on the standby.
Oh, yeah. This is quite a fashion statement now. People collect and trade these different colored masks. It's very holiday feeling, I guess. And there's this whole box of pink ones.
Excellent. I'm kind of curious, for you, 2021, thinking about the year ahead, how are you feeling about it? Are you sharing the sentiment of everyone else?
Yeah, I'm actually the first one to respond to the Mentimeter. I wrote emojis and I wrote encouraged. I feel encouraged, that's for sure. We managed to, here in Taiwan, win over the pandemic with no lockdown and the infodemic with no takedown. And that's very encouraging. And I look forward to share more of those emojis with the world. I mean, this is not quite emotion, but it is the core of why our counter coronavirus is successful is a cute Shiba Inu spoke stock that basically says, wear a mask to protect yourself from your own hands, your own unwashed hands. And that's one of the key wins early on that gets everybody washing their hands and wearing masks.
Unconventionally, you have on that dog that you just shared with us, one of your policies in trying to fight the coronavirus was this campaign, humor over rumor.
Right.
One of the biggest challenges that people have had during this period is the rise of misinformation. I know the World Health Organization said a couple of days ago they're worried that the same thing is going to happen when vaccines are out. That there's going to be. So how have you used humor? You've even got comedy writers in the government. Can you tell us
definitely. Sure. Like when we introduce physical distancing, we say very simply that measure in Shiba Inus. When you're indoors, keep 3 Shiba Inus away or wear a mask. And when you're outdoor, keep 2 Shiba Inus away. And I mean, when I say that, you may or may not remember. But when the cute Shiba Inu say that, not only you will remember, but it gets trending. Right? When the science and clarification is more accessible and just hands down more fun than the disinformation, people wouldn't want to share the disinformation.
I wish we lived in a world where we could just have those cute dogs with us wherever we go, just to make sure maybe the rise of robots will allow us to have cute robotic dogs help us keep our distance. I want to know, take us back to January 2020. News was coming out of Wuhan about the coronavirus. It was trickling down through social media. Can you tell us what was happening in Taiwan that helped you and everyone get ahead of the game so quickly?
Sure. In Taiwan, according to the Civicus Monitor, the Human Rights Watch group, Taiwan is the only jurisdiction in the whole of Asia that enjoys a completely open in terms of freedom of the press, freedom of creativity, of assembly and speech. And because of that, when Dr. Li Wenliang blew the whistle on the coronavirus, even though that his message did not get to the people in Wuhan in time, his message did get reposted in December 31st in PTT, the Taiwanese equivalent of Reddit. And because there it gets upvoted quite heavily, people took a look at Li Wenliang's message and saw that as legit. So we not only sent an email to the WHO, which never got a reply, but anyway, the very next day, the first day of January, we started health inspections for all flights coming in from Wuhan. And we started that because back in 2003, we had a really bad case of SARS 1.0, and we had to, lock down an entire hospital unannounced. The municipal government was saying very different things from the central government. People were panic buying N95. Basically what happens around the world at this year had a kind of preview in 2003. And because of that, ever since then, we've set up the necessary laws and yearly drills and things like that to prepare for SARS 2.0, which in a sense is what Dr. Li Wenliang is saying. So without knowing anything about this new release, we just treat it as if SARS 1.0 happened again and started all the necessary standard operation procedures and started, manufacture masks, started mask rationing, and we put the end to the R value, the basic transmission rate for the virus around April. And since mid-May or so, we've not had a single local transmission.
That's absolutely unbelievable. And I'm so, glad that for the citizens of Taiwan that, the systems that have been put in place have kept people safe. I'm kind of curious. I know that Howard Wu, a software engineer, had created almost an app to help early on. And you were involved in that. Can you tell our audience who don't know about it a little bit of history?
Sure. So, the mask availability map was developed by a few civic technologists. And by a few, I mean more than 140, so a large number. And then I'll just click a random one. And what it shows, it works right now. It shows my nearby pharmacies. The red ones are the ones that are out of medical mask, and the green ones are the places that still have some. If you click on it, it shows its opening hours, and in real time, it has this number of adult masks and this number of children's masks. And so in the very beginning, because we were producing only 2 million medical masks a day in a country of 23 million. So that means people were quite afraid that other people would be stockpiling those medical masks. So we implemented rationing quite quickly through the pharmacists and deliberately implemented it to be the same procedure as getting a refill prescription, like for a chronic condition. So people take the National Health Insurance Card, which is a single payer. It covers more than 99.99% of citizens and residents, and to a nearby pharmacy who will then swipe the card and give you firstly 2 masks per week, very quickly 3 per week, and then quickly 9 per 2 weeks, and then 10 per 2 weeks, and so on, based on the production facilities. And we ramped out the production to 20 millions a day quite quickly over the short 3 months or so. And the apps here are just showing that the places nearby that still have some masks so that you don't have to queue in vain. And when you're queuing, you can just watch this app or any of those chatbots or whatever, voice assistants, to ensure that people queuing before you, when they swipe the National Health Card, after 30 seconds, it will refresh. And it's like a distributed ledger that one can audit in a participatory fashion so that everybody trusts the system, not trust the government, trust each other to keep the system honest. And so there will be no stockpiling nor speculation.
Wow. And it seemed to be extremely effective. I've got a question that's come in from David Chavez from New York, who asked, do you think Taiwan's approach to the epidemic can be replicated in Western countries?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now that you've had the same societal inoculation that we had in 2003, right? Because the Taiwan model, in a sense, is what we have learned from our failure to respond back in 2003. In 2004, the Taiwan Constitutional Court charged the parliament to basically do a systemic review of everything that went wrong in 2003 and create, for example, the Central Epidemic Command Center, for example, the Cube Spoke Stock. Well, that's not in the act, but it does say of a single communication like everyday daily press conferences and so on. And then it also regulated the data collection, processing, and applications to implement, for example, the digital quarantine. So the upshot is that for this time around, for SARS 2.0, we do not have to declare a emergency situation, and we do not collect any new data into the state that we were not already collecting before the pandemic. In that sense, we've already prepared in advance. And that's something that you can do too, especially now that given that you're in the UK and soon will probably be vaccinated. It's really good time, just like in Taiwan in 2004, to prepare for SARS 3.0.
Well, I hope all those who have the power to put those programs into place are doing so today. I wanted to ask you, let's jump back to when you were really young. I mean, as I mentioned in, your introduction, you're not a conventional political person. I'm kind of curious, when you were young and you were thinking about what you wanted to do when you grew up, what did you imagine your life was going to be?
Yeah, when I dropped out of the middle high, telling the head of my school that, hey, there's this new thing called ARXIV, archive.org is still around, run by Cornell, where people publish their pre-printed papers. I can do research without, even getting a high school diploma. And the head of my school simply said, yeah, what you said is right. Tomorrow you don't have to go to school anymore. And she'll cover for me, meaning that she'll fake the records so I don't get punished by the state for not showing up to middle school. And this really made, I guess, the early internet really the first political culture that I engaged in. That includes, of course, the World Web Consortium, the Internet Engineering Task Force, the Perl community, and things like that. So that this rough consensus, radical transparency thing is just my native politics. It wouldn't be another 5 more years until I actually have a vote in Taiwan. And so because of that, I guess when I think about the future, I think in terms of internet, of the early internet, the idea that everything is possible, end-to-end innovation, permissionless innovation even, and that we're going to work in a, if you have read a Declaration of Cyberspace Independence, this kind of libertarian vision of the community building on top of this censorship resistant or censorship resilient network. Of course, it doesn't quite happen that way afterwards, but it was the idea anyway.
I mean, and how did you transition from to actually get your job in politics? At what moment did that happen?
Oh yeah, we occupied the parliament for 3 weeks. That's how it happened in 2014, March. It's the Sunflower Movement.
Yes. And so you were part of the Sunflower Movement. And then how do you go from being an activist to actually then being an official?
Because around the time of the Sunflower Movement, which is 500,000 people on the street, many more online, organized by 20 NGOs, each deliberating on one particular part about the trade deal with Beijing, because the MPs were refusing to deliberate, so we do their job for them in their office. That's the idea anyway. So that is a demonstration. It isn't demonstration in the sense of protest, but rather demonstration in the sense of software demo. Like it shows the people that it is actually possible to listen at scale, even at a scale of 500,000 people, given the right facilitative spaces. And so right after that, there was a local election. All the mayors that supported open government get elected, sometimes surprisingly. All the mayor candidates that didn't. And so the cabinet started this new program called reverse mentorship, where they recruited people younger than 35 years old to work with cabinet members. And so I was working with Jacqueline Tsai, a cabinet member at the time. And I'm still working physically in her old office because when President Tsai Ing-wen came to power, she decided to have a dedicated digital minister. And I was in the office, but my colleagues were the same people that I worked when I was a reverse mentor to Jacqueline Tsai. And we continue on this idea of reverse mentorship. So now I have my own reverse mentors younger than 35.
That's amazing. And what is one of the, with your reverse mentors, what is one of the greatest lessons or thoughts that you've learned from one of your reverse mentees?
Yeah. So as a reverse mentor, my main innovation, I guess, was to apply internet governance, that's to say rough consensus, running code, and so on, to emerging issues such as Uber. We had a really successful online plus offline deliberation that regulates Uber. And like Uber now is a local taxi fleet, the Q taxi, but there's also line taxi, other taxis that all enjoy the same like competition conditions without anyone, get caught up on the what's sharing economy debate. We just talk very concretely about insurance, about registration, about the fair use of the road and things like that. And that's my work as a reverse mentor. Now, the lessons I'm learning from my reverse mentors are varied. I mean, there was a young reverse mentor, not even 30 years old when he joined, that proposed that our National Day parade every October 10th, we shouldn't just invite people who participate like in Olympics, like athletes that wants medals to the parade, but we should also invite world skills competition winners, the champions in particular skills, particular professions, and he invited the Ministry of Labor to Russia, to Kazan, where they had this world skills competition that year, and where Taiwan placed on the third place overall, and successfully petitioned for that change. Now, this is not just for one parade, but really a curriculum change, so that instead of people going into academic high schools failing and then go to professional high schools, we want to get people into the some people who are more interested in skill development to look up to those champions as models, and also have those champions to work in the high schools so that they can do placemaking and just revamp the school together and so on, so that younger people can understand that learning skills is not just for their career, but also for the positive social impact that it's causing. So he has this like really long petition, but people, of course, remember the National Day Parade, and that's something that I learned.
Amazing. I'm kind of curious, at the beginning of this talk, I asked our colleagues about how they feel. And feelings is very important to you. You encourage your citizens to share their feelings. Can you talk us through your process of a rough consensus and your police system that you allow people to actually be part of the conversation?
Yeah, definitely. So the POLIS system at pol.is is a open source free software system to listen at scale. So in the very beginning, and this is a actual screenshot from the original 2015 Uber X conversation, you can see yourself, I guess, in this blue avatar thing. And then you can see clusters. So people who feel similarly are clustered. And you can see your social media friends and families all over the place. So they may hold different positions, but they still share common values. It's just you didn't talk about Uber over dinner. And then what we do is basically sharing the facts and deliberate on one specific scenario, like person with no professional driver license, but with a driver license driving to work every day, and then picking up strangers on the way, and maybe go on a 20 different strangers every day and charging them for it. So how do you feel about it? And people are invited to input their feelings. It's just like Mentimeter. It's like a word cloud. And just like Mentimeter, you can't reply. So there's no way to troll other people. All it does is that it shows a sentiment from a fellow citizen, whether you agree or disagree. If you do agree, you move toward the people who are feeling the same. If you disagree, well, you move toward the people who disagree with the sentiment. But there was no way to like troll people. And every time we run this conversation for 3 weeks or so, you see maybe 5% of the sentiments being divisive, but actually most of the people agree with most of each other's feelings most of the time. And it has been like invariably true, because this system just encourages people to propose ideas that resonates with one another. And the best ideas are the ones that take care of most people's feelings, which we then set that and only that as agenda and invite all the stakeholders into a face-to-face and also broadcasted conversation, and then hold the rough consensus into account and then make it regulation or into law. It's a very simple process.
I mean, it does sound like a very engaged process. You're really encouraging citizens to be a part of it. It sounds like there's lots of conversation. And what is always so refreshing when you speak is just, again, pushing this idea of radical transparency, having everything out in the open. And it feels like you're working really hard for people to have a trusting relationship with the government. Can you tell me why that's so important to you?
Well, to give no trust is to get no trust. So mostly it is about the public service trusting the citizens. The citizens may or may not trust back, but that's quite beside the point. The core idea of radical transparency is just to make sure that people understand not only the what of policies, but also the why, the how of policy making, so that they can give us more informed ideas. And that is also why, like during the pandemic, the Central Epidemic Command Center holds a press conference every day at 2 p.m. So not only they do this ask me anything with all the journalists and answer each and every questions, but there's actually a dedicated hotline. So after the CECC press conference and after the Shiba Inu translates the message into cute memes, people will call 1922 and ask the scientific or emotional questions, which will all get answered, 95% anyway. And then the 5% or so that didn't quite get answers. For example, there was a young boy who called during April saying that I don't want to go to school because you're rationing our mask and all I get is pink medical mask and I don't want to be laughed at by my classmates. And then the very next day, everybody in the CECC wore pink medical mask, regardless of their gender. The Minister of Health even said Pink Panther was his childhood idol or something. And so the boy became the most hit boy, not only because he has the color that heroes wear, but also heroes wear. So the point being that once you trust the citizens like this, the best innovations gradually amplify, and you can amplify that trust much more easily because then all the brands, all the trendy media and so on, all colored their social media pink. And so for a while, pink really was the most trendy color, and that says the masks are protecting you from your own unwashed hands, regardless of its color. So that means that we amplify the trustworthiness of not only the original message, but also I bet that a young boy and the friends and family and so on are much more willing to share their innovations to 1922 afterwards.
I mean, it's amazing. It's such a lovely story. And I'm sure that little boy was so happy that, turning up to school the next day was the coolest kid with the right colored mask. I mean, how are you? I'm thinking about us as a business, Warner Media, we're a global business. We're spread all across the world. We've got 25,000 employees, so many different divisions. You were able to act super quickly as a government to change a culture overnight in terms of pink masks. What would you be if you became the digital minister of Warner Media? What would you be thinking? What should we be thinking about as a business to help think and work, be one more reactive and agile as a company?
Well, I wasn't aware that Warner Media has ministers. I guess maybe the preaching and praying kind. Yes, so I'll probably serve as a ambassador and invite other digital ministers on this wonderful Mentimeter-powered tech talks. That's probably what I would do, and that's actually what I'm doing. In a sense, I'm also kind of like a digital ambassador and having conversations with senior leaderships in pretty much all the largest Silicon Valley companies. And by recording these in the open and by sharing it with the population, not just with Taiwan, but everybody in the world, it helps to build common values out of very different positions. And of course, people had very different views, like when David Plouffe visited me in 2016 and lobbying for Uber at the time. People had a lot of misgivings about Uber at that particular point. But because it's not only radically transparent, it's actually 360 recorded. Anyone can put on a VR and relive this conversation of me with David Plouffe. And then I guess it shows the best side of all of us because when you're in this kind of a lobbying environment, of course, you appeal to the sustainable goals, to the global welfare and things like that, because it will look really bad if you propose something that is at the expense of other people, because they would also view the video or read the transcript afterwards. So some sort of this ambassadorship, I think, really helps. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about, I've been learning about your sandbox program. And can you, can you tell us a little bit about it? And for those who aren't aware of what it is, can you take us through an introductory version?
Sure. So a sandbox is a simple thing that says you get to violate a regulation of your choice for 6 months and see what happens. As long as it's not funding terrorism or money laundering, because we know what will happen. No need to experiment on those. But everything else is fair game. And so you can even challenge some existing laws, for example, pertaining to self-driving vehicles or to fintech or to 5G, and soon also for higher education and also probably for medical. I'm probably missing a few. But anyway, you can challenge any regulation and some of the laws in an attempt to prove to the society that your version, your fork, if you will, of the regulation is actually better for the public welfare. And if after a half a year or a year or so, people discover that this is not a good idea after all, then we thank you for your investment. You lost quite a bit. Everybody learned a little bit. It's like reverse lottery. But if your version turns out to be better, then we agree to adjust our regulation and even our law to match your version. And that takes time. But during that time, you get a monopoly until we get the law fixed. And so that is basically the incentive.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, to encourage. Do you think that comes from your hacking background, like that you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sandbox is a hacking idea, anyways, from computer science.
Yeah. And I mean, you even have robots in your office, right? That you encourage people to hack.
Oh yeah, correct? Definitely. So. Yeah, so here is my office, like literally my office, the Social Innovation Lab at the heart of Taipei. And this soccer field is drawn by people with Down syndrome, with trisomy differences. And everybody who step into this place, because we tore down all the walls, you can walk in like a park, immediately gets inspired, I guess. There was a mayor of Prague, I think, from Czech Republic, Zdeněk Chyb, a fellow pirate party member, not a fellow pirate. But anyway, and this is his small cabinet who gets so inspired they climb on this structure, and we didn't really test it, but it's really nice that they didn't fall down. Otherwise, it's very diplomatically visible. And here are the robots that you were referring to. So not only humans visit me on my office hours, but also those self-driving vehicles. And these are open source, meaning that the hardware and the software, the way they interact and so on, are all open to hacking. And so the nearby college, the Taipei Tech, really hacked on it, listening to the societal feedback on these self-driving vehicles. They're tricycles, they're kind of slow, so they can't hurt people when they run to people or into walls. But we very quickly discovered, for example, they don't yield to the elderly. They only yield to the children. Maybe it reflects its Boston upbringing. But in Taiwan, that's probably not going to fly. And so we can, change the algorithm so it respects the elders more. And also people wanted for it to act as a kind of shopping cart that follows people around the flower market, which means that it requires two eyes and a way for it to understand hand gestures and things like that. So this is basically getting people into the frame of mind where we can talk and deliberate intelligently about self-driving vehicles without invoking, Skynet or Terminator ideas.
But yeah, I love that. I look forward to my tech skills being good enough to be able to contribute to your to your robots. I had a question come in from Amy Sang from London, who asks, you've talked in the past about the importance of trust and civic engagement, enabling of tech tools that have helped Taiwan respond to the coronavirus. How do you think similar efforts would work somewhere like the UK? Understanding and trust in the public realm has been rather low. Would it be possible to have that happen without the government wholly on board?
Yeah, I think a lot of it boils down to what some commentators said, participatory self-surveillance. And it's not like the UK didn't have that. I mean, the UK had Fix My Street, which in a sense is participatory self-surveillance. It's just people using their phones to report where the roads are broken and report them for fixing. And so I guess there is the culture, there is the infrastructure for that. And so that is why I'm quite optimistic that after you all get vaccinated in the UK, a systemic review for preparation of SARS 3.0 will probably point to a very similar direction where Taiwan went in 2004, which is a central messaging unit, but the data collection could be federated, like in Taiwan, when we said that any business need to keep a real contact list for a few weeks so that when anyone reports a case confirmed, they can notify the people to go into isolation or quarantine. We didn't say that they have to report those numbers and names and so on to the central government or really to any authority. They can just demonstrate they keep a scratch pad or anything like that, which is quite popular with the nightlife district, host bars and hostess bars. And that in that way, they can protect the pseudonymity of their patrons while also conforming to the contact tracing needs. And that balance, that federated data collection, I think it's really needed because otherwise people will, of course, say that the state is trying to increase the surveillance power in the name of the pandemic. And that will lead to actually people going into underground, like the US prohibition era, right? So, the upshot is that we need to trust people more, and we need to come up with a system like the Taiwan model that federated this trust.
A question actually based on that from Nina Wang, who's from San Francisco, who's actually a fellow Taiwanese. Nina asks, love to hear the minister's thoughts on how the international countries can learn from Taiwan regarding the technology front. So how can the globe learn from what it is that you're doing?
Yeah, there are parts like the cute dog or humor over rumor that are very easily adaptable. It's just a communication idea. There are parts like broadband as human right that really needs investment. But on the other hand, it's quite Western investment. Anywhere in Taiwan, even on the top of Taiwan, the Yushan mountain or the remote islands, you're guaranteed to have 10 megabits per second for video conferencing both ways for just 15 euros a month. And if you don't, it's my fault, like literally, personally, my fault. And so there was people in like a quarantine place who wrote me saying that ministry, you promised broadband as human right, but on this side of the building, we didn't have good reception for all the telecoms. So it's your fault you said that. I'm like, yeah, sorry, we're fixing that. And after a couple of weeks, we set up a new telecom tower there. So the point is that if we can guarantee broadband as a human right, we don't have to focus that much on so-called media literacy or data or digital literacy, because that was the term literacy was still in an era where the bandwidth is asymmetric. People watch the television or listen to the radio, but doesn't have a lot of ways to spread their creativity. But nowadays, with broadband as human right and zero marginal cost for live streaming 24 hours a day, people are storytellers. They are people who provide their own narratives into the democracy, into the counter-pandemic effort. And so building digital competence on top of that, I think makes for a much more trustworthy society, because without which there's no way for people to use their phones to keep the pharmacies and mask availability in check. That builds upon the broadband as human rights. So that's also something that we're spreading.
Amazing. I've got a question from Patrick in London who asks, recently you tweeted at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, inviting them to visit Taiwan and see the Taiwan model in action. What do you what did you mean by that?
Yeah, that's just literally what I wrote. And it's a retweet, right? It's retweeting a
Yeah.
similar invitation, to Donald Trump to also visit Taiwan when he was president-elect. And so, yeah, I think this is just a friendly gesture. I think there really is a lot that the U.S. can learn from the Taiwan model to prepare for SARS 3.0 in particular, but also to counter the infodemic. We also had our own infodemic during the election. There was a trendy disinformation that says, the counting process is flawed. Dr. Tsai Ing-wen gets elected because the CIA, is always the CIA, printed this invisible ink so that no matter who you vote, Dr. Tsai always wins because the invisible ink will just appear on Dr. Tsai's ballot place and your vote will just magically disappear. And we fixed that again thanks to the broadband as human right. We have YouTubers of all the different parties witnessing the counting process and even live streaming them. And they all have their own counting apps so that in real time, from all the major parties, you can see what's it like in the counting places. And if there were invisible ink, I'm sure that they would not escape the YouTubers' cameras. And so, again, I mean, it's like humor over rumor. People get attracted to the actual live coverage from the counting process. And if everybody anybody with a phone, which is pretty much everybody, can follow it, then there's no room for disinformation to spread.
Right. I have a question from David Kennelly who asks, our technology seems to advance more quickly than our culture. How do we adapt culture more readily to technology in the future?
Yeah, I think it's the other way around. I mean, the best kind of disruptive technology is technologies that disrupts only the industry, but it fits the culture better. It fits the culture more. I have in my mind, for example, the whole open source movement, which is, of course, a lot of disruption in the software industry. But at the end, I think it's much more empowering to everybody else. And so that is what I call a successful disruption. But I don't really believe in technologies that disrupts the culture. And I say so because in Taiwan, we have 20 national languages and therefore more than 20 cultures, most of which indigenous, but also on the ethnic Han side, there's also Taiwanese Hakka, Holok, and also, of course, the new immigrants and English speakers and many other speakers as well. And so there's really a transcultural norm here in Taiwan that any technology need to be reviewed by all the different cultures to make sure that it's equally empowering of these. And if there's something that's less empowering, for example, the daily live streamed CECC press conference for people with hearing disabilities, that puts them in the negative. And so, of course, we always have sign language translators and so on. And so we care a lot more about the inclusion aspect of technologies, and our technologists strive to create disruptive innovations that only disrupt the industrial side of things, but not the social side of things. That also means that there's more intergenerational solidarity and less digital gap.
Wonderful. Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I've got a really fun question for you coming up. But before I do, sure, I need to look back at my audience, who did a great job with the first mentee. And I'm going to get them to just participate in one more mentee. We're not going to be looking at the results, but this is a really important mentee, so I hope people will participate. The business is deciding whether or not to have tech talks next year. And so my question to you is, should we be having tech talks next year? If so, why? If not, share with us. I'll be sharing these findings with our leadership. And I would really appreciate you giving feedback to us. These tech talks are specifically designed for you to help you learn and grow. And, we've had incredible thought leaders throughout the year, but they're really here as a service to you, our employees. So if you want more, let me know, and I will be making sure to send this information to our leadership. So I'll give you a moment.
I just figured it out. Yeah, I said, why not?
Why not? Excellent. We'll make you an honorary Tech Talk audience member. You can just join us. Come in for some fun. Cool. Excellent. So a last question in a wrap up. And this is a question that's come from Sally in Singapore, who asks, do you get any time to watch TV or videos? And if so, what is it that you're watching?
Yeah, I watched, I guess, Tenet. I don't know whether that counts, and had a really long sleep, like 10 hours sleep. And after I wake up, everything made sense. So rather happy about that. And I enjoyed the Hamilton on Disney Plus. I guess that's the two videos that I watched recently.
Oh, excellent. Yes. Christopher Nolan did a fantastic job with Tenet, and yeah, it's one of those films that definitely you can spend some time thinking about afterwards and putting together the pieces. Yeah, I recommend watching it again. It's a wonderful piece for those who haven't. One sneaky little question. I know I said one, but one sneaky little question. Innovations that we should be looking at in the future. What's exciting you?
Yeah, I'm excited at co-presence technologies. I have in my habit now just using the XR Space headset, which I have in the next room, but I will not go and fetch it. You can look it up anyway. It's called XR Space, and it's one of those VR sets that doesn't need a controller. So like a HoloLens, you can control it, only use your both of your hands, but it's also like really, really lightweight. I can wear it for like 4 hours and not feel a thing. And it has 5G built in, so you can just take it anywhere. And so all these three independently, I mean, you can find it in some VR headsets, but all three put together, it's rather magic because you can then be outdoors and sharing with anyone with XR Space what's it like to be at that particular outdoors and just enjoy a sense of kind of ambience, co-presence, which is great for like building human connections. I mean, we are building human connections, but in a rather two-dimensional way. And with just like single side of our rooms and things like that. But like with XR Space, I had a artistic conversation, a co-creation with the new museum like curator on the Matterhorn mountain, so like literally floating over the Switzerland, and that's one of the nicest experience. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, as someone who loves jumping into VR and into digital spaces, I will definitely be checking that out. Minister Tang, I cannot thank you enough for your time today. I love what you're doing in terms of encouraging, civil engagement and radical transparency. Your humor that you're bringing into the government, and your like clear passion is so, it's apparent to everyone. And thank you for spending your time with us today. And I look forward to you coming to the UK, where we can host you once the world is open again. And thank you for everything that you've been doing for the people of Taiwan.
Yeah, definitely. Live long and prosper till then.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Minister.
Bye.
Well, that wraps up our 2020 agenda for our Tech Talks. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. The Minister, wow, what an incredible human being. I definitely will be thinking about how I can implement openness and radical transparency in my business practice. And I hope it's something that you may think about how you can bring into your own teams. As it's the end of the year, I just want to send a massive, massive thank you to all the incredible people behind the scenes who make this happen for us, to John, our director, and David and Chris and Kayla. Thank you so much for making all the technology work, and Patrick and Karima for all your help with logistics and operations, Wimberley and Amy, who make sure that this is up on Warner Media One, and all the comms people around the company who make sure that you know about our Tech Talks. I hope I'll be here with you next year. I wish you such a wonderful, great new year. Keep up that hopeful spirit, and I look forward to innovating with you soon. Take care.